we got to the interview. I'm not going to say specifically which office just to preserve the client's confidentiality, but the interview was scheduled to be at 1 o'clock. And the officer met with us at 1:14. So pretty close to being on time. We were about 30 minutes early, so we got there at 12:30. Around 1:14, we met with the officer. And spoiler alert, we were out of there in like 8 to 9 minutes. Hey guys, so last week, one of my clients attended an N-400 naturalization interview. And he hired me to go along with him. And I took pretty detailed notes. So I thought today I would just tell you exactly what happened at that interview, like step by step. I took down detailed notes the entire time and I thought I would make a video out of it. If anyone's in the process of naturalizing, maybe this will reduce your anxiety or help you out along the way. Okay, so we got to the interview. I'm not gonna say specifically which office just to preserve the client's confidentiality, but the interview was scheduled to be at 1 o'clock and the officer met with us at 1:14. So pretty close to being on time. We were about 30 minutes early, so we got there at 12:30. Around 1:14, we met with the officer and spoiler alert, we were out of there in like 8 to 9 minutes. So before 1:25, we were out of that interview. And I'll tell you guys exactly what happened. So we get to the interview room. The officer says to my client, before you sit down, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that everything you're gonna say is the truth? And he places the client under oath. And then he tells the client to sit right down. I asked the officer at that point, officer, we uploaded 2 documents before this interview. I had actually uploaded them just at like 9 o'clock that morning. And I asked the officer, did you get those documents? He said, yes, thank you for uploading those. What we had actually uploaded was one amendment to the N-400 application where we previously answered no to the question, have you ever been arrested, cited, detained? I think it's question 15B on the N-400 application. But my client had actually previously been cited for like a traffic violation. So he got a copy of his DMV abstract and I made a minor amendment to the N-400 application and I uploaded it. Additionally, he owed some money to his prior spouse for child support and he was in full compliance. So we just uploaded the most up-to-date records showing that he's in full compliance with each payment. And the immigration officer actually appreciated that we uploaded those things. He didn't ask anything about child support obligations. He didn't ask anything about criminal history because we had already uploaded everything. After the officer places my client under oath, he says, okay, we're gonna start with a reading test. And he displayed a sentence on a tablet in front of my client. The tablet said, who lives in the White House? And my client had to read that question, who lives in the White House? And that was it. Next is the writing test, where the officer asked my client to write down one sentence. The sentence he asked my client to write is, the president lives in the White House. So my client had to literally write that sentence on the iPad tablet that was in front of him. Next, the officer moved to the civics test, where the officer will now ask you up to 10 questions. You have to get 6 correct. That's gonna change. They're gonna pretty soon begin asking you up to 20 questions and you need to get 12 correct, but we're still under the older version of the rules. So here are the 6 questions that the officer asked. My client got the first 6 correct, and when you do that, when you get 60% correct, the officer can end the questioning right there. They don't need to continue and still ask you the remainder of the questions. So the question the officer asked was, who does a US senator represent? My client answered, all of the people of the state. The next question was, when must all men register for selective service? My client answered age 18 to 26. The next question was, name your US representative. I'm not gonna tell you what my client answered because it'll tell you generally where he lives. Next question is, what is one responsibility that is only for US citizens? And my client answered, to serve as a juror. Next question, what is the capital of the United States? Answer, Washington, D.C. And then the final question was, if the president can no longer serve, who becomes the president? And my client answered, the vice president. And then the officer's exact words were, okay, sufficient, we're done with that. And then the officer just went through some parts of the application with him. He saw his travel history. He asked him a little bit about it. Everything was good. There was very minimal travel. And then the officer went on to ask some of the yes or no questions that are on the application. And he was just, asking my client some of these questions. And these are the specific questions he asked. He asked, when you apply for jobs, did you ever represent yourself to be a US citizen? No, never. Have you ever registered to vote, or have you ever voted? No, never. Do you owe any money for overdue income taxes? No, I do not owe any money. Have you ever supported any groups that seek to harm other people? No. Have you ever been employed by any organization that operates jails or prisons or anything like that? No. Have you ever given false information to get a visa or any immigration benefit? No. Have you ever been subject to deportation or removal proceedings? No. Have you ever done any military or weapons training? No. And do you understand the full oath of allegiance to become a US citizen? Yes. Do you promise to be loyal and help defend the country if needed? Yes. So after this part of the interview, and by the way, we're like 6 minutes into the interview at this point, the officer just, engaged in some small talk with my client about his application, about his personal life, and then said, okay, everything looks good to me here. I'm going to recommend this application for approval. We have a swearing in ceremony available today. And it was about an hour and a half later. He said, it's around 2:30 p.m. Do you want to be sworn in today? And we said, yes, of course, we want to be sworn in today. So the officer gave us a piece of paper, and my client had to come back by 2:30, which was just a little more than an hour later. All in all, really happy outcome. The client was very nervous, but it went as well as possible. What are some takeaways from this? First of all, it is still possible to be sworn in on the same day, but don't expect it. It's not likely. It depends on the USCIS location. It depends on whether they've done all the clearance and background checks on the applicant before the interview. And it depends on whether or not the officer needs additional information or evidence from you. In this case, I anticipated the officer may have asked for proof that my client is meeting his financial obligations to his children by continuing to pay child support to his ex-wife. So in anticipation of the interview, I had him go get those additional records and we uploaded them the morning of. Officer didn't ask a single question about that. I thought the fact that we didn't disclose a prior traffic citation might be an issue, and it might have been, but we uploaded an amendment to the N-400 that morning and it never even came up. Officer never asked any other questions about criminal history. So it went as smoothly as it could have gone. I would definitely recommend uploading additional documents the morning of, or maybe even a day or two prior to the interview, just to save time. If you're in the interview and the officer wants additional documents from you and you don't have them with you, they're going to issue a request for evidence. They're not going to be able to swear you in that day, and it's going to delay the process by probably at least a month, possibly much longer than a month. One final thing I want to mention, and I'm making another video on this that I'm going to release tomorrow, all about the good moral character requirement for N-400 applications. So there was a policy memorandum that came out on August 15th instructing officers to consider other things for good moral character. But the actual federal register where the rule was written down doesn't go into effect until the end of October. So I wasn't sure how much of an issue good moral character was going to be at this interview, and it wasn't an issue at all. The officer didn't even bring it up. So it seems to me, at least at this interview, that the absence of negative factors, the absence of criminal history, is still currently enough to show that you have good character, and that's probably going to be true until the actual policies change at the end of October. But anyway, I'll make another video on that tomorrow where I'm going to be talking all about good character, because this is the new way that USCIS officers can deny N-400 applications. All right, guys, if you got any value out of this video, be sure to like the video. If you want to stay up to date on what's happening in immigration world, directly from an immigration lawyer's perspective, be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you need any assistance with family-based green cards or citizenship, you want to petition for family members to live here, or they're already living here and you want them to get their green cards, or they already have their green cards and you want to become a citizen or help your family members become citizens through naturalization, I'm your guy. My name is Pouyan Darian. I'm an immigration lawyer practicing immigration law nationwide throughout the US. So if you need any assistance with that stuff, you can find the link to schedule a direct consultation with me in the video description below. You can also go to darianlaw.com or give us a call to schedule a consultation. I would love to speak to you, and I'll see you guys next time for another video.